Throughout the construction of our film, we used a large number of technologies in the research, planning and shooting stages. We grew more accustomed to these technologies through practice using them in the preliminary coursework and during the creation of our film, and gained a greater knowledge of the technologies we were using. This has helped to show us how essential technology is in the creation of a successful media project, as some form of technology was used at each stage of the development process. These forms can be designated as websites, software, or equipment. The equipment we used throughout the filming process was vital for us to get our desired results from the film. Though there were a number of different pieces in the equipment, the video camera was most essential to our work. Without the camera, we would not have been able to record the shots, and so it was vital that the members of our group knew how to use it effectively. When we were filming our preliminary, we got our first hands-on experience working with the camera. During this process, we learned the basic function of it, such as how to record video footage and upload it. Over the course of the two projects, each member of our group became proficient with it, combining it with other parts of equipment such as the tripod in order to get our desired shots. Although the tripod was always available to us, we decided to make a lot of our shots handheld in order to capture the theme of the scenes and also get a better perspective of the character. We used a number of online websites when planning and researching for our project. These websites helped us immensely as they made it much easier to gather information about our research movies and enabled us to make a more in-depth and helpful planning decision. Software became most prevalent during the editing phase of production as we used the software Final Cut Pro in order to edit the footage we had recorded. This proved to be a vital instrument in attaining our desired scenes. Initially, our group was unskilled in the software, but throughout the preliminary project, we grew more accustomed to the functions, and this aided us immensely. When we began our work on the preliminary task, our group had no previous experience of shooting a film. This led to some problems within some aspects of that process, but through practice and experimentation, we learned how to overcome these obstacles when filming our final piece. I have chosen to evaluate these aspects in accordance to 6 categories: teamwork, time management, camera work, music and sound effects, location choices, and editing techniques. Teamwork. When filming our preliminary task, none of our group had ever worked with one another, and so we were unsure as to the abilities that each member of the group had. This led to some tension throughout the filming of our preliminary, as some of the creative choices were disputed, and the film itself may have suffered as a result. See, at the beginning of the year, when we first began our project, the members of our group hadn't learned to come to a compromise with one another, itself a key element in the film shooting process. This resulted in bickering and debating longer than necessary, and the film's shooting time was drawn out as a result. However, throughout our time working on our final piece, we all noticed the dramatic change in our attitudes towards one another and the film itself, both in terms of maturity and professionalism, as we learnt the art of compromising, allowing us to use one person's ideas combined with another to create something original. This in turn helped us decide what we decided we would actually film in a much shorter time than on the preliminary task, allowing us to use a greater amount of time to perfect our filming and editing. We also learned how to accommodate each group member's abilities, helping us attribute different teamwork tasks, allowing us to specialise, and at times contributing essential feedback on one another's work. Time management. When reviewing our preliminary task, it became apparent that time management was not a priority for us. We never wrote any form of plan of action or timetable, and we never set a completion deadline for each stage. However, during construction of Thanatos, time management was an important element, as we ensured we set deadlines to meet, helping us to be more efficient in our work. This was achieved through the making of our shooting timetable, detailing when we were going to film, as well as meeting in our own spare time to ensure that the editing stage was completed, and keeping in contact with one another via various social networks. Camera work. Although proficient, the camera work used in the making of our preliminary task lacked any form of visual flair or distinct style. The shots themselves were not poor per se, however, with more practice and ingenuity, they could have been improved greatly. We addressed this problem throughout the filming of our project by experimenting with more diverse camera angles and shots. We also ensured that the continuity was of a greater standard in our final project, as in the preliminary task it was something of an afterthought. However, in the main task we ensured that every shot was correctly continuing the previous one. Music and sound effects. The music and sound effects were one of the stronger points in our preliminary task, as we took care and effort in creating a score that balanced the theme of the film in order to create the desired atmosphere. We acted upon this, however, in the filming of our final project and implemented GarageBand software in order to create the perfect soundtrack for our opening. We also improved upon our editing technique using Final Cut Pro in order to implement the voiceover heard in the scene, experimenting with sound effects and tuning in order to make the voice suit that of the character and making the scene seem more professional. Location choices. During the filming of our preliminary, our shooting locations were restricted to a single house and thus limited our resources in regards to camera shots, lighting and production design. However, during the filming of our final project, we expanded the amount of shooting locations available to us, and thus were able to experiment more with camera shots and lighting techniques in order to get our desired shots. Editing techniques. During the editing of our preliminary task, our group was only beginning to use the software Final Cut Pro, and so we were not used to its functions or options. This limited our ability with the software, and thus we were restricted in our editing of the film. However, through our practice with the preliminary piece, we grew more accustomed to the software and thus were able to expand on our knowledge of the functions that we could implement. This led to the implementation of effects, filters and transitions in the final product that made it seem professionally made.